Hello, this is Daniel Vasco, and welcome to my office. Just wanted to respond a little bit to what I'm seeing on the conservative side of the aisle and in regards to conservatives, and how many conservatives are still clinging on to this libertarianism and the libertarian notions of so-called freedom and completely ignoring the collective. The conservative side is still entertaining this notion that too much power to one person is not what the founding fathers wanted. Okay, and maybe that's true because libertarianism to me does seem like something that you'd find at the founding of the United States and the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Okay, it did emphasize this absolute personal freedom, personal rights, and it was very weary of the government because they were coming off a highly corrupt monarchy in England. The founding fathers created this lifeboat and the structure of the Constitution to provide people with freedoms and their own their right to adhere to their own moral standard. Okay, to inform them to keep away from the corrupted moral standard of a false religion in England. Okay, so this whole let's keep the central government or the federal government very limited and keep our representatives and civil servants powerless would be to protect the citizenry. Okay, but okay, when you limited the power of the states and you limited the power of our civil servants, what happens? The corporations and these cartels come and they come around and they swoop up and they gobble up all the markets and they put everyone out of business. They trample on local jurisdictions. I think of like Walmart and Amazon, for example. Okay, we all use Amazon. We all use Walmart. Okay, let's just get that out there. I mean, it's so convenient. But what has it done? I mean, Jeff Bezos' Amazon is meant to basically put every mom and pop shop in the whole country out of business. I mean, replace stores. I mean, that concept is so heinous to even consider, even though we all use Amazon, unfortunately. And that's a moral question whether we stop using Amazon or not because of that. Some people have. And Walmart too. I mean, how many local jurisdictions did Walmart come into and asked to set up shop and set up this big mega center of shopping, put all the mom and pop stores out of business, and then the local jurisdiction saying no, and then there's a big debate about it, and then the convenience wins over to let those places in. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be an easy solution, but what I'm trying to demonstrate is cartels, especially the big banks, especially these multinational corporations, okay, they swoop in and they compromise the economic earning potential and the livelihoods of people, just normal citizens in various jurisdictions. Okay, so the government may be weak, but the corporations and the cartels are strong. So that's your trade-off. And so I see all these libertarians, they going off about, even they criticize Trump, like Justin Amash here in Michigan. Okay? He voted to impeach Trump. I mean, and from his side of the aisle, from what his view was, I mean, it was a highly libertarian way of doing things. I mean, he was getting too powerful, according to him. He was becoming a demagogue. He was swaying the people and so forth. And that's what libertarian does. It kind of limits and restricts the only means by which you can go up against the big corporations and the cartels that are essentially destroying our way of life. You need a force that is equal or stronger to a great force in order to defeat it. Okay, so the multinational corporations, the big trust companies, I mean, if they're not worth a billion, hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars, some of them have trillions of dollars under management. Okay, so that's huge influence all over the world. They have the strength of many third world countries. Okay, some of these corporations. By emphasizing this classical liberalism, and it's just which is libertarianism, it's just to defer the issue, to not to me, that's representative of a lot of people that are into libertarianism. Not all of them, but some of them are conservative, some of them are liberal. Like, you can't even put your finger on it, morally speaking. I mean, it's just basically, don't tell me what to do. That's what libertarianism. But it reminds me of when some libertarians literally go off into like the country or the forest or whatever and live, and they don't talk to anybody. They're very reclusive people. I'm not saying all of them were. I was a libertarian at one point. It makes sense from an academic level, okay, with not taking into account human nature, which, I mean, how many people, if they knew that they could make billions or trillions of dollars, basically supplanting all the local industry or all the local stores like Bezos is doing, how many people wouldn't do it? I mean, human nature drives us to do these things. So if you give people the chance, they're going to try to conglomerate, and they're going to try to gobble up the markets. Okay, so libertarianism does not take into account human nature. I believe that the government should be small but powerful. So we do want a small government. We don't want a government that meddles in everything. We don't want a government that makes every jurisdiction follow their diktats or mandates and that emanate from the federal government. No, that's not what we're looking for. However, we want them, in the few things that they should be doing, we want them to be strong, to basically save the middle class from these big banks and the big corporations. So we can't discount the collective in all this. I mean, there is a collective. You can't just go off into the woods and hide and say, you got to leave me alone type of thing. You will be called out eventually, especially when these liberals take power. It's like exactly what happened in Russia, the former Soviet Union. The farmers were the ones where they went out with the city bourgeoisie because of their insatiable hunger for resources that they didn't have because of the big banks had stripped them from everything, made everything too expensive. These bands of soldiers would go out into the country and require quotas from the farmers. And it didn't matter if you didn't have food. They took everything because they had orders from the state to go and procure those resources and put them on the market or give them directly to the city bourgeoisie. Okay, so you can't hide. Libertarian to me is like kind of defer the issue, and that's a dangerous notion. Now, some people would say, well, what happens if we all consolidate our forces on the right and nobody checks these politicians when they get too much power? Yeah, there'd be room for abuse for sure, but that's when it becomes a moral question, a moral issue. Okay, so morality and law, so law will not save us. A constitution will not save us. If you want moral leaders at that point, which we will need moral leaders, you want a proper moral standard. You want the Christian faith to inform our leaders on what to do on a daily basis and to not be despots, basically. But we need to start asking that question, okay? So we deferred the question back in when the country was founded because of the moral decay and depravity and the rejection of the Christian faith in England. Okay, but now we need to rediscover what the Christian faith means. All we have to do is rediscover these concepts that will free us from the cartels, free us from the Federal Reserve, and just come up with new solutions to all this. Hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. Thank you.